What up, everyone? This is Chris here, and welcome to another one of my Transformers discussion videos. This video is somewhat of a continuation of the previous Transformers discussion video I did, where I talked about, is the Transformers movie series actually canceled? And in this video, we're going to be talking about, if the movie series is canceled, then how is the story closure for the series? Specifically, how does Transformers The Last Knight work as an ending to this movieverse storyline? Now, like most people know who keep up with the Transformers series, last week we got somewhat news that they may be looking to reset the current movie series in terms of a reboot after the Bumblebee movie. Now, sort of conflicting reports have come out about that, are they actually rebooting? Is the series just on a bit of a hiatus? We don't know, but for all we do know is that Transformers 6 is not scheduled anymore for 2019. So that got me thinking that, okay, if a reboot isn't coming, how is the ending for the current movie series in terms of The Last Knight? How does it leave off a series? Now, with any series, you want to have a good closure and an ending. You don't want any open-ended stuff. If it's a series that you really like, you want to have a nice ending where everything wraps up nicely. And unfortunately, Transformers The Last Knight, by all accounts, was not intended to be the ending of a series. I mean, it was supposed to be the start of sort of a new era in the series in terms of spin-offs, cinematic universe, and all that stuff. But now that might not be happening. And like I said, I hate it when I don't get good closure for a series. Like, an example I'll use is that a bunch of the major Spider-Man series, like the 90s animated series, the Sam Raimi films, Spectacular Spider-Man, the Andrew Garfield films, those series did not end with proper closure in terms of a good definitive ending. And that's always my fear with a series. Now, for this current Transformers movieverse series, even though Transformers The Last Knight was not intended to be the final installment, it actually is not the worst ending we could have gotten in terms of having closure for a series. So let's go ahead and start talking about how the Transformers The Last Knight leaves the series in terms of ending, if it is the final installment. And we'll start with a few major things first. The first thing I want to talk about in terms of story closure, number one, in terms of a good way it leaves off the series, is that Bumblebee gets his voice back. Now, Bumblebee being mute was obviously a big part of his character. It sort of made his character sort of stand out. It was the memorable thing about him, the fact that he didn't have an actual voice. He had to talk through the radio. And it made his character kind of fun, the way he was able to communicate through the radio. He had lots of funny moments doing that stuff. And a lot of people got tired of it, I would say, especially during the sequels. Me, I always enjoyed it. I thought it was a good, unique thing to his character and really made him stand out and made him sort of fun and lovable, the way he was able to express himself through his face, the radio, the eyes, all that stuff. I really enjoyed it. And going into Transformers The Last Knight, I sort of got the feeling that Bumblebee was going to get his voice back, just because it's like, okay, he's been mute for 3 sequels now. I figured that, okay, now's the time that, you know, to sort of mix things up, give the guy his voice back. And sure enough, he did. In that battle with Optimus Prime, that's how he ends up sort of snapping Optimus out of Quintessa's spell. He ends up speaking. And yeah, if you're going to end the Transformers movie series, you want to have B get his voice back, just because that sort of completes his character. Even though it's sort of iffy about, does it even make sense how he got his voice back? When you think about it, maybe the fact that he did put that new voice box in at the beginning of the film, somehow maybe it finally started working when he battled Optimus. But anyway, Bumblebee getting his voice back, that's good. I'm glad that the voice sounded pretty good. He sounded young but mature, sort of how you would want him to sound if this current movie version. So yeah, B getting his voice back, that's a good story closure point for Bumblebee right there. And speaking of Bumblebee, let's talk about the 2 main bots of the series, and that's Optimus and Bumblebee. Point number 2 in terms of good story closure for the series is that in Transformers The Last Knight, Optimus and Bumblebee showed the true strength of their friendship. Obviously, a big marketing point of that film was the Optimus and Bumblebee battle. Now, unfortunately, evil Optimus Prime was not a big part of the movie at all. It really got very little story time. Yeah, that's just how sometimes these things go in these movies. But anyway, the fight itself was actually pretty decent. And sort of a good thing that they brought to it was showing the true strength of their friendship. The fact that Bumblebee's voice what ended up snapping Optimus out of Quintessa's spell. That was really nice to see because that showed that that was a powerful enough memory. Bumblebee actually speaking to sort of wake up Optimus to be like, oh shit, I haven't heard your voice in so long. That finally snapped me out of your spell. And that was cool to see just because Optimus and Bumblebee have obviously been the two main bots of the series, all 5 movies, and they've been through a lot of shit with the like 4 major battles and all the stuff that they had, their history on Cybertron. I'm glad to see that they had a moment where they could show the true strength of their friendship, and even at the ending where Bumblebee actually kills Quintessa, or sort of shoots Quintessa, and Optimus is all like, say hi to my friend Bumblebee, and then Bumblebee ends up blasting Quintessa. That was another nice moment right there. So it was good sort of story closure to show that the 2 main bots of this series had their moment to shine together. So that's a good story point. So those are 2 major things right there. Let's move into some smaller stuff before I get to some more major stuff. One sort of cool sort of foreshadowing thing that ended up being unintentional probably, but ended up working pretty well, was that scene between Megatron and Starscream's head. First of all, I'm so glad they included that scene because I loved those Megatron and Starscream moments in the previous films. But when Megatron's grabbing Starscream's head, he tells Starscream that the end is near and that he's disappointed that Starscream won't be there to witness the end of the war. If Transformers: The Last Night ends up being the actual end of the series, that's actually a pretty nice foreshadowing moment in terms of the final battle in this movie being the actual final battle in terms of what we're going to see from the series going forward. So the fact that that's included, now maybe that it was intended for Transformers 6 to be the ending of the war that Megatron was talking about, but if Transformers: The Last Night ends up being the actual end of sort of the series, then I'm cool that there's sort of a nice foreshadowing moment between Megatron and Starscream there. Now, the 4th point I'll bring up, and this is really minor, something a lot of people won't care about, but I'll just bring it up just because it is there, is that Cade and Viviane, they end up going together. Those are obviously getting together. Those are obviously our 2 main human characters of Transformers: The Last Night. And Cade Yeager, I thought he was really good in Age of Extinction. Story-wise, I don't think he was used as well in The Last Night at all. Yeah, his character sort of took a step back, just in terms of sort of his sort of journey. And I think it was because he didn't have his daughter with him that we didn't really have sort of a good character journey for him. But anyway, him and Viviane getting together, that was fine. Viviane actually ended up being the best character overall in this movie, whether it's human or robot. I really enjoyed her in this movie. And the fact that Cade finally got someone, hey, good for him, because obviously he did, his wife died, his daughter was away at college, so the fact that he gets some companionship, that's good. Now, let's leave that alone, because now a lot of people really don't care about me talking about that. Let's go to another point, is that the movie sort of did give us an explanation for why these events keep on happening on Earth. Obviously, Earth being Unicron is sort of the explanation they give for all of these major Transformers events sort of coming to Earth. Like just all the stuff, like the pyramid stuff, all the final battles that we've seen, Transformers constantly being here throughout their history, throughout Earth's history. I guess Unicron's presence is sort of what's drawing them here. Now, that's sort of me interpreting things, because we really did not get a great explanation for why these things keep happening on Earth. But that's sort of what was marketed in the trailers. It's like, okay, why do they keep coming to Earth? Earth being Unicron, or Unicron being Earth, however you want to put it, that's sort of the reason why these things keep happening on Earth. It's not a great explanation, but hey, it is there. So that's sort of a good sort of closure point in terms of why these events keep happening on Earth throughout the series. And sort of speaking to that, Unicron. Now, for the next sort of good closure point is that Unicron is actually present for the end of the series, sort of the final battle. Now, Unicron, for any Transformers finale, you want to have Unicron. Unicron is sort of the big bad of the Transformers universe in terms of that giant mega enemy presence, sort of the equivalent to Thanos for the current Marvel Cinematic Universe. And no, we did not get to see Unicron in his sort of real sort of characteristic mode, if you will. I don't know, his robot mode, let's put it that way, where he can be sort of a speaking presence through the film. But I mean, he was there. We did get to see his horns. We do know that he is Earth. How much of Earth is he? We don't know. Is it sort of like a Transformers Prime situation where he's not actually the entire Earth, but just a part of Earth? I don't know, but he is there. And really, when you think about it, it's not a guarantee that they would have done him well in Transformers 6 anyway. I mean, what were they going to do? Have all of Earth transform? Or was he just going to be, like I said, sort of how he was in Transformers Prime? We don't know, but it might have cost too much to sort of have him be a big presence of Transformers 6 anyway. So sort of the way they do it here, where he's just sort of a unique presence. You don't know exactly what he is, just the fact that he is part of Earth, we do know that. And the fact that we at least got to see his horns and he did have a presence. I mean, he's the major reason why these events in Transformers the Last Night are happening. The fact that he was there for the finale, that's good, because I think that any Transformers finale, you should sort of use Unicron, because he's sort of the big bad of the Transformers universe. And speaking to that, the good guys win. That's something you always want to see with a finale, is that the good guys win, or at least have a definitive ending in terms of sort of your good guy heroes. But specifically, you do want to see your good guys win. So that's good, because obviously, like all the other movies, the Autobots and the humans actually end up saving Earth from sort of its ultimate doom in this movie. Earth was about to get fucked up big time, more than any Transformers movie, actually. So that was good that they win. And then the final major point I'll bring up in terms of good closure is that the Autobots actually do go home. They end up winning the battle, and then Optimus's final message is sort of rallying his troops, the ones that he had left, which were all the Autobots from AOE and the newcomers that they had in this movie. And they end up going on the ship and sort of end up going to Cybertron, saying that they have to work together to rebuild Earth and Cybertron. But since Cybertron, I think from what it seems to me, is that Cybertron is going to be near Earth forever, was what it looked like to me. Anyway, they end up going home, and it's sort of a nice, majestic moment. Actually, sort of a beautiful ending. This actually might be my favorite ending of the series, maybe besides the first movie, just because the way it's done is so beautiful. I mean, that final shot of Optimus waving goodbye to Cade and Viviane and all the soldiers, the final shot of the ship, them in the ship flying to Cybertron, and then Dragonstorm flying with them, was really nice, and especially the score that went with it. It was the same score that was part of the ending of the first film. It's a beautiful score. I can't remember what the name was, but it's a great score, and the fact that they used it here is sort of nice symbolism if this is the end of the series. So that whole ending was just beautiful, and it does, and right there it's like, ooh, that actually is sort of a nice ending if it is the end of the series right there. So all those points I brought up is why the Transformers The Last Night would work as an ending for the series. To recap, Bumblebee get his voice back. 2, we saw the true friendship between Optimus and Bumblebee. That foreshadowing scene between Megatron and Starscream. Cade and Viviane get together. We get an explanation for why these events keep happening on Earth. Unicron is technically present for the finale, and the Autobots end up going home. So those points right there are why TLK works as an ending for the series. Now, there's 2 main things that do not work and really stand out as, oh, that's not good closure. And that is the ending for Megatron and then Quintessa, specifically that post-credit scene. Now, for Megatron, let's start off talking about him. It's not good closure, just because Megatron, in the final battle in the ignition chamber, Optimus ends up kicking Megatron out of the ship, a nice blasting kick, and he ends up going flying out of the ship after a sort of a nice moment, sort of callbacking that brothers moment between him and Optimus in TF1. But so that's not good closure for Megatron, because he's not dead. I mean, it's the equivalent of what happened to him at the end of Revenge of the Fallen, for crying out loud. We don't really know what happens to Megatron going forward. So I guess sort of in canon, you just have to think of, well, there's always going to be bad guys, and he's just going to end up doing dumb shit and then failing. Or maybe the fact that, you know what, maybe I don't know. You can sort of write in your head, maybe he just gives up this sort of quest to battle Optimus and whatever, just because now Cybertron, I mean, it is there. It is technically close by Earth, and maybe he's gonna go help out Optimus and the Autobots sort of rebuild things. Maybe it's the same ending for him at the end of Transformers Prime, where he just sort of goes away. I don't know. You would, but the point is, you would have liked better closure for Megatron. Whether you would have actually gotten to see him reform and become a good guy, whether he would have actually died, just anything would have been better than him just getting kicked out of ship. So you just sort of have to write off Megatron as, you know what, maybe he's just going to do dumb shit and keep failing. So, oh well, not good closure for Megatron. That Quintessa is the one that, even though it seems bad just because it is a post-credit scene, the whole thing with her sort of, her disguising herself as a human, still wanting to actually kill Unicron, that actually isn't all that terrible. I mean, it's a post-credit scene, and the way you would have to think of it is just like, you know what, her plans are just never going to go through. It's just not going to happen. Just the fact that what's she really going to do now? She's got no more troops. How is she actually going to kill Unicron? Post-credit scenes, I don't know. They're always there to sort of show the potential of what could happen in the sequel. Maybe you always could just ignore it. But Quintessa, I don't know. It's not as bad as Megatron is the point I'm trying to make here in terms of what's going to happen to her in the future. I mean, her plans, all you just have to think is, you know what, her plans, they're just not going to go through anymore. So for Megatron, I guess just think into your head, he's just going to give up after this. That was sort of his final bow down, and at least him and Optimus had sort of one last nice moment together. And Quintessa, just think of her plans as just not going to work. I wish I could come up with something more definitive for those two, but unfortunately we didn't get anything definitive for their ending, so that's sort of how things will go. So yeah, that's sort of all the stuff I wanted to bring up in terms of the ending for the current Transformers movie series, If the Last Night is the ending. So overall, my feelings are that we actually got much better closure than you would have thought. There are Transformers Last Night does end in a way where it's not a total disaster if it is the end of the series. There are much worse endings we could have gotten in terms of closure. I mean, the series could have left us on a really big cliffhanger, like a real cliffhanger where it's like, oh my God, we're not going to get to see the ending of this. Like, imagine if the series ended with Age of Extinction. Now that would have been awful, seeing that tease of Optimus flying into space, him going to see the creators, and us just never getting to see that. That would have been really bad. But Transformers: The Last Night is far from a disaster when it comes to being a story ending for the series. Now, you can hate it as story closure just because you do not like the movie, and sure, and there are definitely people who do not like this movie. In terms of how it ranks in the series for a lot of people seem to hail it as the worst in the series. I don't know. I sort of go back and forth between this and Revenge of the Fallen being the worst of the series for me. It's just, for me, it's still probably Revenge of the Fallen, just because I actually think The Last Night ended better. I would rather it end stronger. If you end strong, that means a lot to me. So whether you hate it because you just don't like the movie, hey, whatever. You just have to deal with it. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about here. Now, would I still like to see Transformers 6? Hell yeah, just because I want to see more of a series that I'm a fan of. But being realistic, if this is the end of the series, then you know what? It's far from a disaster in terms of story closure. Like I said, there's a lot of things about the movie that give us good story closure. And whether they should have actually ended the series with Dark of the Moon, well, that's a subject for another video. So look out for that one. But as for this video, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Leave your comments and tell me what you think about the story ending for the series, if it is actually done and we're not going to get any more, if we're not going to actually get a sequel to The Last Night. Leave your comments about that, and I'll see y'all around with another video.